Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of my Bigfoot sighting? Alright then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
My Bigfoot sightings all took place in California. First and foremost, I want to thank Vic for having me back on the show. I really enjoy doing his show. I have fun doing it, and I really enjoy talking to the viewers out there. For the ones that don't know who I am, my name is Dan Shirley, and I am a Bigfoot researcher from the state of California. And I've been researching Bigfoot for the past 50 years. I specifically specialize in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And the reason I do is because I feel it's the best place to gather evidence and proof of the existence of Sasquatch. So tonight, I got some great stories for you. I hope you enjoy them. Now, the first couple stories are going to have to do with my research when I conduct it by night. Y'all may not know this, but in what I do, the nighttime to do research is the most unpredictable time to do your research for many reasons. It's also a lot dangerous, more so in the daytime, to conduct your research at night. Obviously, this is when all your major apex predators come out. They come out to feed and hunt. So I'm going to take you to a time of the year 2018. On this particular day, we all went up to the Sierra Nevada mountains. I went to this one particular area, which is outside the triangle area of what I classified as the Sierra Triangle. In this one particular area, I have done extensive investigating on other eyewitness accounts who have had run-ins and interactions with these cryptid entities. So I decided that I was going to conduct the type of night research that hasn't been done. At this point in time, in 2018, I have already started my Sierra project. You see, what I planned on doing was an experiment using particular types of vocalization that I handpicked that represent Sasquatch. I chose 5. And then what we did, we have what they call a blaster box. We recorded the vocalizations of the 5 into the box. Drill into the box, we have it set up where it runs through a PA system so we can blast it out into the forest. I want to get the full effects. What was the purpose of this experiment? It was to show absolute proof and evidence that these entities do exist and they are real and they're alive. They're existing. In order to this experiment to work, I need a reaction from other animals in the forest. You see, they will only recognize a particular type of vocalization or a particular type of sound. This is what I was hoping on. If in fact they are real, I should get some type of a response. If in fact they are not real, I probably won't get no response. It's a chancy experiment, but it's got to be done. So We load up our equipment and we head out of camp. We went down to the water right off the beach. There's a reservoir there. This reservoir is called French Metals. And it sets up high in the Sierras. We're up around 8,000 feet elevation. So we're up pretty high. And we're following a line, the water line. It's so dark that night. I believe we probably had a sliver of a moon. Flashlights came in handy, real handy. So we're hiking in. I'm still following the water line of the reservoir. Little time goes by. Everything's about normal as it should be. I look at the time. It's about midnight. And then all of a sudden, Toby stops and he yells out, "I shine, I shine." We all stop. We all look, turn to our left. Where we're standing at right now is about 70 to 75 feet away from the timberline. Right in that timberline in the darkness, there it was. We saw it. Eye shine. Around 7.5 to 8 feet. You couldn't see the entity, but I could see the eyes. I know it was not related to any other known animal in the Sierras. I thought for a second maybe it was a black bear climbed up a tree, but there was no tree where the eyes were at. So I told my team that night that I gathered, it was I, my assistant Garland, Toby, and his brother-in-law Anthony. There was 4 of us. At that point in time, I said, this is where we're going to do my experiment. So we walked towards the timberline, exactly where we saw the eye shine. Now I'm about 50 feet away from the timberline. And I say to myself, this is a perfect spot. We set up the equipment and now we're ready to go. We're ready to make this experiment happen. So what I did, like I said previously, I chose 5 top vocalizations from a Sasquatch. I told my team member we're going to run them through in a segment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start with 1. Each segment I had him blast out 3 consecutive times with about 30 seconds in between each segment. After the 3rd segment, we wait for 5 minutes to see if we get a reaction. We went through the first one. Nothing. We hit the second one. Nothing. And the 3rd and the 4th. I'm thinking at this point in time, maybe my experiment's not going to work. Maybe it's going to fail. But I'm not a negative person. No, not me. I say to myself, no, it's got to work. It has to. These guys are real. It has to work. Then we got down to the last one, the 5th one. I told Toby, blast it out. And as we did as we did the others. After the 3rd blast, we waited for 30 seconds. In about 40 to 50 seconds, we got a reaction. But what reacted blew us away because we were not expecting this at all. The reaction we got was from a pack of coyotes, and they were coming in our direction, and we could hear them, and they're making themselves loud and vocal. And Toby turns and looks at me and says, "Danny, they're coming right at us. They're coming here. They're coming to where we blasted the sound." Next thing you know, I got this grin growing on my face, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And we're just sitting there in the dark. And about this time, it's probably 1 o'clock in the morning, quarter after, and we're listening to all this. And just when we thought they were going to break the timberline and say hello, they didn't. they turned around and reversed course. They were going in the opposite direction. This had me puzzled. Had us all puzzled. Toby looked at me and said, what's going on? I said, I don't know. Well, just listen. All ears at this point, guys. All ears. Then it went silent. And I mean dead silent. It was a dead zone like I've never experienced before. And I've been in dead zones. But not like what was going on right now, this particular moment. And then all of a sudden, all I can hear, and all of us, was a pack of coyotes that were in a panic. They were going nuts. Screaming, yelping, crying. And it got louder and louder. And then all of a sudden the screaming, I never heard anything like it. Never. Not then, not now. Even as I'm talking to you about it right now, it sends shivers up my spine. I never heard such horrific screams. It was as if they were being torn apart from limb by limb. That's the only way I could describe it. It was terrible. Myself, personally, I don't like to hear any human being in pain or an animal in pain. Nothing like what I heard that night. It was a terrible thing to listen to. And then it quit. And it was so frickin' quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And silence. Quite a while. And then all of a sudden, it was as if someone turned a light switch on. And the force came back to life. As if nothing happened. Now it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said to myself, the frickin' experiment, it worked. It worked. Those coyotes would not, and I repeat, would not react to something they know nothing about, something they have never heard before. They might have come to investigate what sound it was, but other than that, they would not have reacted the way they have. No, they were heading to the sound to investigate. They knew what it was. They recognized the vocalization. They knew what it was. We packed all of the gear up. We headed back to camp. On the way back to camp, we were conversing about this event happening tonight. They asked me, Dan, what do you think happened? I said, I believe that Sasquatch we saw before we did the experiment, I believe that cryptid entity, the pack of coyotes, crossed paths. And that's what became of it when they crossed paths, was all that horrific. I didn't want to talk about it no more, to be honest. It was really terrible, guys. But at any rate, the experiment worked. They're real, man. They're real. They do exist. So, we're back following the water line again of the reservoir, heading back to camp. It's getting late now. It's probably about 2:30 in the morning. Toby and Anthony wanted to get to camp a little bit quicker than me and Garland. So they headed back up ahead of us. We lagged behind. Then we saw them disappear into the darkness. Now it's me and Garland, standing by the water's edge. We were talking about what just happened tonight. And if you think it's over with, oh, no, not by a long shot. No, this night wasn't going to end yet. This, you ain't going to believe. But you got to, because it happened. You ever get that feeling where something's behind you and you just feel something's behind you? That's how we felt. We turned around very slowly to our left, faced the opposite direction. We were looking right at the reservoir. You're not going to believe what we were witnessing. This bright object dropping out of the sky and heading right towards us. It was descending fast and rapidly. I know it's not no kind of aircraft we know of because they can be up here, especially around this time of night. Period. And whatever it was coming towards us, it was not even making a sound. It was quiet. No sound. And it got closer, closer. And then all of a sudden it descended to a low altitude. And now it's like about 50 feet above the reservoir. It gets about halfway across the reservoir and it stops and hovers 50 feet above the water in the shape of a sphere. It was pulsating a white light. Very, very bright white light. Every time it pulsated, the light got brighter. Not a sound. Not one frickin' sound. We knew at that point in time exactly what we were looking at, a UFO. What was it doing there? That was the question. Was it there for a reason, for a purpose, or was it coincidental? Now, I know you've all heard stories where there's a connection between these cryptid entities and UFOs and or ETs. I will tell you myself personally, as a researcher, I have seen these a few times like this, where both parties happen to be there at the same time. But I will say, I have found no connection between the two at all. I believe it was just coincidental. And what was the craft doing so low to the water? I believe it was after the water. Maybe it uses water as some kind of an energy source. I have no other reason why it would have been there that night. So, that's my first story. That is true. That happened. The story I just told you, I documented that by paper, and I documented it by video. You can see segments of that, what I just told you, on my channel. So, I hope you like that one. Which brings me to the second story. Now, this one here, I call it Return to Bigfoot Country. So, where do I start with this one? Now, this particular story here takes place in the Sierra Nevada mountains, but this time it's further up north, up around the Oregon border. A place I was near where the Patterson film was filmed, Bluff Creek, Northern California. For quite a few years, I was doing extensive investigating and field research night and day in that particular area. I found that the Sasquatches in that area are mainly rogues, usually male, and they're very aggressive. Very aggressive. They're intelligent, but not as intelligent of some of the others that I've documented. But nonetheless, they're not stupid, that's for sure. This type, when you do research with these guys, you have to be really careful because of the fact they're so aggressive. I have had interactions with them up there before. They've gotten aggressive on us. So you got to be real careful when you conduct research in this one particular area. Now, the area I'm talking about is a little tiny spot way up in Northern California. It's called Helena. It's in Helena, California, which it has its own California history. It was a silver town. It was a silver strike that was found up in that part of California. A lot of people are not aware of that. It was a cattle rancher, and he created a town. They had their own school, their own post office. They had their own everything, their own church. It was for the miners. This took place back during the gold rush days, around the early 1850s. This same area, these cryptid entities have been residing in this area for a long time, hundreds and thousands of years, a long time. It took a while before I could find this particular spot, to be honest. It took a lot of investigating, a lot of research. Something really special about this area. You see, it forks right off the Trinity River. And when it forks off to this one area that runs through Helena, it goes to one special area. A lot of us know of it over here. It's called the Oregon Pass. It's right at the base of the Oregon Pass. If anybody knows anything about the Oregon Pass, it's a migrating trail that goes all the way up into Canada. This area is probably one of the most dangerous areas to do any kind of night research at all. The daytime's bad enough, the night's worse. Now, me and Garland, through the years, we've had buku experiences with these entities in this one area. And they haven't been pleasant times at all with these guys. Like I said, they're very, very aggressive. So we were up there on this one particular weekend. And I chose this one weekend because it was the last time I was going to do any kind of research up there. I wanted to spend all my time down where I'm at now on my Sierra project. So I figured we'd give it one last big go up here, up northern part of the Sierras. Now, we had to go up to that area to begin with anyway, because I was going up to the Bigfoot Museum, which is in China Flat, Northern California. Prior to that, I've already donated some artifacts that I found out in the field. And I was going up to the Bigfoot Museum. I was going to donate 2 particular DVDs that I had done, night research and day research. And I was going up there to hand it over to one of the board members. And so while we were there, I figured I want to do one more time of night research up there. I wanted to cover that area in Helena again. And so when we got done with business at the Bigfoot Museum, we took off and went back down to Helena. We went to an area and a spot that I've always camped out at where I conducted my research, which is right off where the Trinity splits and forks. As a matter of fact, you're about right there at the base, the Oregon base of the pass. So we set our camp up, set our equipment up. And then just before we're waiting for the sun to drop. So in the meantime, while we're waiting, I decided to do a little scouting around the area so I know what's around the vicinity before the sun drops. I always like getting an idea of the environment I'm around. So we did. I started finding evidence that they were there. Right off of one of the creek sides, there's another creek that forks off from the one Trinity part that forks. And it runs along horizontal alongside where our camp's at. We were down by the water side and we smelled an awful putrid smell. We turned around and looked down to our left and we found the carcass of a deer. The deer was killed and gutted, but not by no human. not by no human being, not by no animal. It was done by something else. And they used a particular type of cutting tool, which was not used from any kind of blade I know of. More so used, say, from a jagged, sharp stone, like the early hominids would have disemboweled a deer. It was exactly the same way. And you don't see them like that. Not like that. Me and Garland sat around, set the camp up, got a campfire going. You got to have a campfire going, believe me. And we got it going and roaring and hanging around. And we're waiting. Finally, we get our cameras and our lights. We're heading down towards the beach. We get down to the beach area where the two rivers fork from each other from the main one of the Trinity. Right across the other side of the river, rock markers are set up in such a way I've never seen before. Then I'm looking straight down in a northern direction, looking way down of the river. And right off the bank, something is squatted. And it's in a complete squat position, covered in dark hair. I could see it as plain as day. I yelled at Garland. Garland came over there, and he saw it too. It looked at us and evaded us and went into the forest. So we started scouting around the whole beach area. Found some footprints. Found some footprints in the water. They were hanging on the beach and off the water. Probably feeding off the freshwater clams. Of course, there's some nice trout running through there. My guess is they're fishing. They're foraging for food. But all the rock markers that were set up told me there was more than one that would come there. It told me several. So we got off the beach, started walking back up to the ridge. And then we got halfway point, and I said, we're going to stay right here and wait. So we sat there in the darkness and waited and waited. It's about midnight now, maybe 12:30, somewhere around there. And then all of a sudden, we can hear something walking. It's not walking on 4 legs. This thing is walking on 2 legs, upright. You can't help but hear it because it's walking right off the water line where it's nothing but sand and rock. I know it had enormous weight to it because every step it took, you can just hear everything moving on the ground. I can hear him walking. So we very, very cautiously and slowly slide on back down that hill. And we start working towards the water line. We hit our flashlights real quick. I caught a glimpse of some eye shine real quick. It turned and went off to its left and evaded us and disappeared in the darkness. We were hoping we'd get him on video. So we kind of hung around, stayed low, so to speak, stealthy, quiet, hoping he'll come back and he does. He came back. But he knew we were there. He wouldn't come in any further. He just let us know he was there. And then all of a sudden, you got the strangest feeling, like you had all kinds of eyes upon you, but you couldn't see where they were at. It made us feel really, really nervous, uncomfortable. I checked my sidearm to make sure she was hot to trot if I had to use it. These guys are too aggressive. I don't want to be stuck in a situation where everything goes awry. So we decided the best thing to do was evade ourselves and head back to camp. As we did so. And as soon as we got back to the vehicle, all kinds of strange vocalizations start filling the air. You could just feel the intensity in the air. Something's wrong. Something's dead wrong. I don't like what I'm feeling right now. Garland doesn't like it. You get this feeling it's not good to stay here. It's time to leave. So that's exactly what we did. I didn't think the vehicle was going to make it out. We tried 3 times, and then finally we got it. We ended up pulling out of there around 3 or 4 o'clock that morning. On the way home, me and G just looked at each other. We both said at the same time, that was the last trip up here. Don't want to do it there no more. And I haven't been back there since. We packed it and went home. But we did accomplish our mission. I got the artifacts to the Bigfoot Museum. And I got to do the last research in that area up there where we were at in Helena. Someday I might return back up there again. But right now I'm too busy with my Sierra project over here. Now, I documented that too by paper and by video. And guess what? You can see that video right on my channel because I have it. Check it out. So, that is story number 2. So, we'll go to story number 3. Now, this one here is field research by day. So, this one here happened, I believe it was around 2016. I think it was about a couple of years after we did National Geographic. And there was this one area that we were doing field research. I only did day field research in this one area. I didn't do night. Because of the simple reason, daytime is a lot better choice to pick, especially when you're looking for evidence. And that's exactly what I was doing. I'm looking for evidence of whatever evidence I can gather. So we come up to this one area, and I found some droppings. Sasquatch droppings. Quite a bit of them. Indication of a small group. Maybe 3 or 4, maybe more, I don't know. But at least I know there's 3 or 4. And this time around, it was fairly fresh. And you may ask, how did I know it was Sasquatch droppings? That's an easy one. Because I'm the guy that tried to put it in the books. I have been doing investigating and researching on those droppings for years. And I can't identify it. The simple thing is, when you look at their droppings, they resemble human, but not human, not animal, something completely else. But I know what to look for. I've been doing it for years. When I first started doing my research, there was only one person that had one up. It was on the internet. It was a photograph of what he claimed was Sasquatch droppings. Other than that, nobody knew what it looked like. Nobody had an idea. But I started coming across this very strange type of droppings, and I went into my own investigating, my own research. You can kind of say I'm kind of like the founder of that too. The droppings I've done, documented, they're on the internet, and they're in the archives. And to be quite honest, to this day, today, there are other researchers that go by that. Because I have actual photos of it on the internet. And they go by that as a reference. So that's why I knew they were there in this one area. I went past the piles of droppings. We didn't go beyond that point before. And as we went in the deeper interior, we came across this one area. And it dropped down into a ravine. Down the bottom of the ravine was a nice, fast-flowing creek. Beautiful flowing creek. Crystal clear water. Nice green algae growing through it. Very edible. Full of food. Creek was full of food. Right off the bank of that flowing creek, there was a marker that came from a tree that did not even belong there. There was no such trees of that sort in that area, but yet there was. It was what I call directional marker. It was a point of direction, point of travel. The marker also was a symbol of water. It made sense. There's a flowing creek. On the other side of Flowing Creek was a trail that's being quite used. Point of travel, direction. They use these markers as you and me would use a road sign. And that's exactly what they use them for. They're symbols of communicating. So we followed the Flowing Creek. And I stayed right off the bank. And I traveled it like as if they would, the hybrids. You see, believe it or not, these guys don't like walking on a whole bunch of debris and go to places where it's too difficult to walk. They don't wear shoes, right? They just got bare feet. You have to think like they think. I'm going to walk where it's more comfortable, less wear and tear on my feet. And that's why I follow along the riverbed and the creek bed. So I'm traveling. We're going down the creek bed. I got a small team with me this time. It's me and Garland and Valentine. The first thing I come up with is a fresh snap tree. I'm going, all right, we're on the right track. I keep following it. I'm heading downstream, see. And about this point, we're in I'd say about a mile and a half following the creek. All of a sudden, I stopped. Take a rest. And then all of a sudden, I turned to my left and I looked up. There's a ridge. Because I'm down in the ravine. And I look up. All of a sudden, something black, covered in black, flashed right by me. They were up on the ridge. Now you have to picture the ridge is full of pine. Forest up in here in the Sierras, it's thicket with pine. I probably caught it for I'd say about a second or two. Caught my attention. I wasn't quite sure what it was. Could have been anything. Could have been nothing. Could have been a shadow. But the problem I have with it, shadows don't move. This moved. I turned around and I told Garland, I says, I think we got company above us, to the left of us on the ridge. And he looks at me and says, is it them? I says, I'm not sure yet. Let's all be quiet. We'll continue our walk. I want to keep an eye on the ridge. So we continued our hike, following the Flowing Creek, as if we're not aware of anything. And we walk a little bit and walk a little bit. Then I stop real quick. And I'm looking right at that ridge. Ha! Saw ya! You sly little boogers. I caught you. There goes one. And there was a second one followed right behind it. Two males, covered in dark hair. Both over 8 feet tall. And they were watching us the whole time, without even us knowing. You see, how would that make you guys feel? You're out in the woods and they're just watching without your knowledge. Think about that. Every time you go out in the forest, something's watching. Don't know what, but something's out there watching. Up here in the Sierras, I have a thing I call, these hills have eyes. And they do. So I know they're there. Garland knows now they're there. Valentine knows. I work it as if they're not there. I stay calm. Keep my head together. And then I look back up at the ridge. They're not there. They're here, but they're not where I expected them to be no more. But they're still around. They're still watching us. At that point in time, there was no further to go. It was too many thickets. And I knew they weren't going to go through all that. So I took the best path off the creek that I thought they would take. And I followed it right out of the ravine, right up to the ridge where they were. Now we're on the ridge. We're back on flat ground. We continue our hike. Now we're headed in an open area. We had this one area look like a big meadow and surrounded with pines, thick pines. It's late in the afternoon now. Then straight ahead up, Darwin yells out, "What's that?" We all get up where he's at. And we start finding pine trees laying all over the place. The funny thing about it, they didn't belong here. They were all broke away from where they came from. And they did not belong anywhere in this vicinity. We looked everywhere. They came from another part of the forest and they were brought here. But why? For what reason? No explanation. So we continued to investigate the area. We walked in further and further. And then all of a sudden, I've seen something I've never seen before. And it's blowing my mind what I'm looking at because it's right here in the middle of nowhere. Right smack in the wilderness. I'm looking to my north. What do you think I'm looking at? I'm looking at 8 pine trees, all snapped, mid-center of each tree. And the rest of the tree was missing. Nowhere in sight. Nowhere at all. Where'd they go? The other peculiar thing in the way these pine trees were set up, like in a half circle. It reminded me of Stonehenge. They were on a half circle. All snapped at the same level. What does it mean? It means something. It's a symbol. It's a symbolization of something. Then I turn to my rear. And I'm looking to the south of me. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Are you frickin' kidding? There is a shelter, a constructed hut. Completely built, constructed. And it was big. I've never seen anything like it all the years I've been doing this. I've documented by paper and video above ground shelters, which they only use them for temporary reasons. You see, because in reality, in the real world, they live in the ground. They don't live above the ground. They hunt and they forage above the ground. I've recorded where they built and constructed shelters to stay out of the environment, but it's just temporary. Or when they travel, they use them as a pit stop. That's it. But they mainly dwell in the ground, like subterranean caves, solution caves, caverns, subterranean caverns. This is where they live. It's absolute. That is where they live. That's why and how they evade us so quick and so often and disappear and reappear. And I will say this. I have not found one constructed hut or shelter that these hybrids built is nowhere. I find nothing on the internet. Absolutely nothing like it. It's a one of a kind. It was a shot in a million to just come out and run right smack in to this area flat out in the middle of nowhere. It was mind-boggling. It was mind-blowing. You got to see this hut. I mean, it's completely eerie. I investigated the whole outside of it. I wanted to go inside. I really did, really bad. The rest of the members told me not to. They kind of talked me out of it. Maybe it was good they did. Something could have been in there. But I do know this. The 2 male squatches that were following us, they were still there watching us. And what did this area represent in the first place? What did it mean? The whole thing was eerie, really eerie. Some made sense, some couldn't make sense of it. That's why I classified that area as a Sierra hinge. And guess what? I have that on my channel. And you can see it yourself. I believe the title of the video is called The Sierra Hinge. It's one of my recent videos I put up. And the other 2 stories, the first 2 I told you, like I said, you can see those on my channel too. That's why I like documenting by video as well as by paper. Seeing is believing. Check that shelter out. Telling you guys, you've never seen anything like it. So, those are my stories I had for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed them. I do have a lot more, but it would take hours and hours and hours to cover what I know, believe me. Long, long time to cover everything I know. And these are just a few more of the stories that are factual, actually happened. And right now, I'm working on another project, still the Sierra project, but I'm investigating in another vicinity right now, of a higher altitude of what I've been doing lately. So my research keeps me pretty busy. I'm all over the place. But I'll go ahead and let you guys go right now. I hope you enjoy the stories. And I would love to return to tell you some more if you would like Vic to have me back. I'd be more than welcome to come back. I'd whip some more stories on y'all. Well, I guess I'm about done.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, love's in the plow, and the 5-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.